Chassa, we're back. Steps I Took podcast, the podcast where we delve into the journey of interesting individuals to find out what took them to where they are today.
I'm interested to get into the nitty gritties of comparison from NHS to healthcare systems out here in a very diplomatic way.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting how this guest, came into my kind of peripheral in terms of I was at the hospital and then I was wearing an Arsenal top. And we got talking, football tops are like
football unites humans.
Literally.
Unites a lot of people.
And then it turns out, that Dr. Ali, who is our guest today, is also a fan of football and also has history with, working with football clubs, etc. And then I was just like, yo, would you like to come on the podcast? And
I love it. Dr. Ali, by the way.
Dr. Ali. See, I was like, that's what I was going to say. Like, should we do it in the Ali or the...
Ali's fine, man.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. That's
okay,
okay.
Yeah.
So welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Great pleasure being here.
Before we go into anything, because I want to hear about the whole Ali, we have a tradition on this podcast. And the first question we like to ask everyone is, what has been the best part of the best thing that's happened in the last 7 days of your life?
Last 7 days, wow. I think the last 7 days is that I've actually booked my holiday for this Thursday. It's a bit last minute. So I'm looking forward to that. That's very exciting. I'm going to be going to Egypt with my wife and kids.
Nice.
And it's something I was just like delaying. And then when I finally booked it, I was like, euphoria. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
Fantastic. That's very exciting.
Which part of Egypt are you going to?
We're going to go Cairo mostly. And then we'll kind of plan on going to Alexandria as well. So up in the Mediterranean.
Nice.
Yeah.
Have you been before?
I've been before, but it's a while ago now.
Yeah.
It'd be good to go back again.
And you experience it differently with family as well,
Absolutely, yeah. There's some families also. I'm originally from Sudan, so some of my families in Sudan are there already. So we're visiting them, and that's adding motivation to go.
Yeah, nice, man. I think it's always interesting, obviously I've introduced you as a doctor, but it's always interesting to kind of go way back to, childhood. What was life like for you as a youngster?
So I was born in Sudan, and I came to London, the UK, at the age of 1. So my dad was like a diplomat associated with the Sudanese embassy. And so for the first 11 years, I was just in London. So even my family back in Sudan, didn't really know them. I hear a few names in the house. And in the first ever visit, when I visited Sudan, I think I was like year 7, maybe 11 or 12. And that transformed my perspective in life in general. That's probably one of the biggest turning points for me. Just seeing a different culture, different way of life. And then when I came back to the UK on a visit, it just kind of opened up my eyes for opportunities that I have, whether it's education or just general opportunities that I had in the UK. So I appreciated things a bit more, and that probably guided me more towards my academic studies and stuff like that. So that was early childhood. Big family, so 3 sisters, 2 brothers, all grew up in Camberwell, so Southeast London, and that's kind of the early childhood.
Yeah, nice.
Amazing. So before that, before you went to Sudan, what were you like as a kid?
I just like to play a lot of video games, a lot of football. Football was a big thing. We had like a football area kind of where we lived, football pitch. We used to just play there every evening. My parents were very chilled out as well. They weren't really hard on us studying. It was very community-based as well. Everyone kind of knew each other in the street and very, family-friendly area. But yeah, I was just involved in everything, as you are mostly at that young age. So you kind of find out what's happening around you. You make different sort of friends. I used to go to a Saturday school as well, every Saturday. My parents were quite keen on us maintaining our Arabic and our culture and stuff. That's kind of my early, memories.
I'm sure the Arabic has been beneficial for you now.
You say that, but since coming to Dubai, it's like everyone wants to speak English. Like even
Really?
the Arabic-speaking people, especially as a doctor, they see it as more of a professional language, so they even prefer to speak English. You get some locals that maybe their English is not as good, so they kind of, sometimes use the Arabic, but it can be handy,
So from those first 11 years, you're out playing, etc.
Yeah.
And then I guess you come back. Did you feel like different in terms of identity?
I think so. Obviously, at that age as well, South London, you get a bit of mischievous. You get your crew, your gang, whatever. And then, how it is in London when you're from South, you kind of feel like you're tough guys. You got your thing going on. And also, when I went to Sudan, obviously the beautiful part was your family, your roots, knowing where you're from. But you also see a lot of poverty, just like in the street. You see people begging. You see people struggling. I had people trying to study with no electricity. So when I kind of saw that and I came back, I was like, you know what, I've got a lot of privilege here. Like, we act like we're hard and stuff, but actually there's a lot of privileges here. We're very blessed. I think even in that young age, it's made me appreciate things a bit more. And that kind of gave me a bit more focus, I think. So that was a turning point.
It's really beautiful that you were able to appreciate so much at such a young age, because I think a lot of kids would have gone at that age and still been like, well, whatever, man.
Yeah.
And you don't know what trajectory your life would have gone on had you not had that, that moment of
Absolutely.
actually, like there's people that are less fortunate than I am in the world, Because
I think from that age as well, I started to go every 2 years or so. So it kind of maintained it. But at that initial 11 years, we hadn't gone.
Yeah.
So I think and I really like going as well, like just seeing your grandparents, uncles, aunts, and it became a regular thing.
Yeah.
So that was a big turning point, I think.
What did you want to be when you were younger?
After you go through the phase of being a footballer, it's more like, I think a pilot. I really wanted to be a pilot, actually. So when I was young, when I was doing the GCSEs, I was like, I want to be a pilot, planes. When I looked into it, I was like, how do I become a pilot? It wasn't straightforward. It wasn't like get these GCSEs, get these A-levels, and go to university. It sounded a bit complicated. You have to have like a airline that will sponsor you, or you got to be very rich to get the license. It just came a little bit complicated. So then I kind of medicine looked a bit interesting. I kind of like that. I was watching Holby City ER a lot. So then that kind of, and then I think I shadowed a couple of doctors and I really liked it. And I found out, it was quite interesting. So I kind of went that path.
So you shadowed doctors before you even decided to go and start studying?
I think when I was doing my A-levels, I kind of considered it. So I just kind of went to the hospital like, look, I'm happy to volunteer. Most of the time we're just volunteering in the wards. But there was a couple of doctors I'll kind of follow them around, do the ward round, and I quite liked it. Even then, though, even in my medical career, initially, I wanted to be a surgeon. It was all action-packed. You want to kind of fix things.
Yeah, because you're watching Holby City.
Yeah, exactly. You're seeing that. And then as you get older, you're like, I want more family-friendly times. I don't want to be called in the middle of the night. I don't want to be doing weekends. And then you want variation. So I think the downside for me with surgery is that it becomes very repetitive. So, for example, if you're an orthopedic doctor, somebody just does the hand, somebody just does the knee, so it become quite boring. So family medicine, or GP as they call it in the UK, is very varied, very different. Literally everyone that walks through the door could come with a different problem, different age groups, and you maintain a lot of relationship as well with your patients, literally from cradle to grave, as they say.
Wow.
Mad.
So what is I actually don't know what the journey is to become a doctor, because I know it's a long journey, it's not just a quick
it's
thing.
sort of a long journey. So after your A-levels, you go into university, and it's typically 5 or 6 years. You really need to do it in 5 years, but some universities say you got this extra year as optional or compulsory. So when I went to Cambridge, I had to do the extra year. I would have rather just done it in 5 years. But the good thing about Cambridge is that for my third year, or this extra year, I could do whatever I want. So I actually did Arabic, theology, history, and literature, something completely different. It was actually my best year. I enjoyed it the most.
That sounds interesting, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with medicine, it's very, when you're studying, everything's just factual, memorizing, learning. And then when you do something very different, it's not right or wrong. It's more like, how do you argue your thing, different perspectives. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Even the kind of people doing that subject was very different from the medics I was with.
So you mentioned Cambridge, right?
Yeah.
So as a young boy growing up in South London, like the idea of going to Cambridge is not probably a common thought, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in my secondary school, at the time it had the worst performing GCSE. It was 12%. No one had ever been to Oxford or Cambridge. I changed for my sixth form to SFX. It's a different sixth form, and they were quite good, actually. I think every year they had 2 or 3 people that went. And at the time when I was applying for medicine, most universities required like AAB. Oxford and Cambridge wanted AAA. So I was like, I could just apply. I guess there's not much of a difference. But I had zero preparation. I didn't know what to expect. It was more like I could take 4 universities. If I do one of them, Cambridge, and even Cambridge and Oxford, you can't do both. You've got to choose one. And I didn't know the difference. So I kind of just went on the website. Cambridge just sounded a bit more medic focused. So I applied for it. And I applied for the other 3 universities. And I think, go to the interview. A lot of luck is involved. Right place at the right time. Just bonding with the person. So there's a lot of different factors involved. But luckily I got in. And it was an interesting journey.
Yeah.
Interesting how?
It's very different. I always tell my friends, it's almost like, you remember the Big Brother when it was on, like years ago? You get people from all over different countries, the world, society, different parts of the country, and we're all kind of together, different backgrounds. So you start making friends with people that you typically wouldn't, like back where you're from. That's what's quite interesting, I think. Just meeting people from all over the country, all over the world, people from, up north, from China to Korea. So just meeting people like that and making friendships, that was quite new to me, I think.
Yeah.
Must have been like a culture shock as well at times, was it? In terms of like, because for me, for example, like when I went to law school, for example, I remember I walked into the room to like the lobby where everyone was signing up, and I was the only black guy, for example. So that was like, you know.
Yeah, they have their traditions, man. So you even walk around and you see a lot of the portraits and no one looks like you. I think I was the only black guy in my college as well initially. So there is a lot of that. But people in general just kind of, you know, embrace change. The world is different. But yeah, sometimes that tradition, you know, you kind of appreciate it more and you just understand the historical perspective of it. But yeah, it can feel a bit different, I think.
What is it like as a newly qualified doctor getting a job? Because as anybody coming out of university, the first thing people ask is, what are you going to do now? Yeah. And you're thinking, I don't know.
Yeah.
But as a doctor, you've had or training to be a doctor, you've had a clear pathway journey, right?
Yeah.
So was it easy then to get a job?
I think luckily, I mean, one of the biggest positives of being a doctor is that it's very easy to find a job. Like there's literally a shortage of doctors in every country in the world. And the way the training works in the UK, even as a medical student, you're trained within the NHS. And then you kind of apply for like, it's called foundation training. So you're kind of a junior doctor. Pretty much everyone gets a job to start off with. The salary is not very high, but you kind of guarantee the job. And you just kind of apply to the areas you want. So for me, I applied to be back in South London. I kind of wanted to go back home, live with my family for a bit. So my first ever job was in Lewisham Hospital, which is like a 15-minute drive. So yeah, you kind of guarantee the job for the first 2 years. And then you kind of have to decide where you want to go. Do you want to be a surgeon? Do you want to be a medic? Do you want to be a kid's doctor? Do you want to be a GP? So within kind of 2 years, you kind of have to roughly decide which route you want to go down.
And then do you have to train again once you've decided which route?
But the good thing is you're getting paid now, yeah? It's just not like university, struggling. You're kind of getting paid and the pay goes up a bit year by year and you kind of decide what you want to be, yeah.
So you train on the job?
You train on the job, yeah.
Okay.
So you're kind of working, but then you have a few exams as you go along the way. So that can sometimes be challenging, actually. But at least you're getting the financial rules.
During those 2 years when you decided that the kind of like family thing was for you more?
To be honest, from university, I was very interested in plastic surgery. So I did like a research project in plastics. I was shadowing this doctor. I did a publication, audit. Really liked it. Then I kind of thought, okay, if it's not plastics, maybe general surgery. I kind of looked into it. And to be a plastic surgeon, you had to kind of have a PhD. There was only like 2 or 3 training numbers throughout the whole country. So then I thought, all right, if plastics is very competitive, maybe orthopedics are like. I did a bit of orthopedics and I really didn't like it. Initially, it was really good. So, you know, do a hip replacement, a lot of drilling, cutting. I was like, this is fun. But then it's like I have to hold the leg for 4 hours and it becomes very repetitive. So even at that point, I thought GP was never for me because at that young age, I'll only see my GP if I had a cough or cold. Like these guys aren't really doing much, paracetamol here and there, go on your way. But then when I actually did it as a rotation, as part of my training as a foundation doctor, I found it really amazing. I was like, wow, so every patient's different. Everyone has different challenges. You've got patients that are dying. You've got newborns. You've got people that are serious, got cancer. You've got people that got injuries. So you're kind of thinking, and literally every 10 minutes is someone different. So I really found that exciting. And you build that relationship with your patients as well. A lot of people come back to you. You kind of know them throughout the years. You almost become friends with some of them. Hence why I'm here, right? So that was my attraction. And then I kind of thought, this actually could work. And I got into that and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. And you stayed a GP now?
Stayed as a GP,
ever since.
And I think that's with most people as well. They kind of start off with a journey thinking they're going on one path. You know, as you said, you went to law school and now you're probably finding you're doing something very different. But opportunities just come and life kind of guides you, you know, to where you're supposed to be in the end, I think.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
No, I like that.
So how did the opportunity arise for you to move to Dubai?
I think even before that, because you know, you went from NHS to sports. What was that?
That was interesting. So after I became a GP, I was kind of locum, so I was working all over the place, and I signed up to this locum agency. Essentially, they're like a company that finds you jobs. So I got a phone call one day. They were like, "Oh, there's a football club kind of near where you live. They just need a doctor for the day." I was like, "Football? I like football near where I live." So I had to call up my medical indemnities, like the insurance, to say, is it all right? Like, as a doctor, can I work in this thing if anything goes wrong? They're like, yeah, you can do it if it's just like a one-off. So anyway, it was called Ebbsfleet United. It's quite a lower level football club, like National League, kind of after League Two. And I got sucked in. So as soon as I was there, I was like shouting at the ref, shouting at the players. And I was like, this is really fun. I think they kind of saw me. They were like, oh, you look like you really like football. I was like, yeah, you know, I'm a big fan of football and stuff. And they're like, oh, you know what, our doctor, we don't really like him. He doesn't really enjoy football. He's always on his phone. He's more of a rugby guy. Would you be interested in doing this? I was like, yeah, but what's the time commitment? I don't really want to be traveling, you know, away games, staying in hotels. And they're like, no, we just need you for the home games. So it was only like 2 or 3 games a month. And it was local to where I live. So it kind of worked. And then from there, I got really into it. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do basically to become like a Premier League doctor, for example. And essentially, I just need to do a master's in sports and exercise medicine, which I kind of did just before coming out to Dubai. And in between, I got involved in like Borough Moor, Charlton Athletics, etc. So that was kind of the journey. And again, it was just right place at the right time. You get thrown an opportunity, you throw yourself in there, try it out. If you like it, you go with it. If you don't like it, you could pull out. And that's very low risk, I think.
So were you doing it at the same time then?
Same time, yeah. Same time.
That sounds like a lot of work.
It was okay, you know, because even as a GP, I was kind of choosing my own hours, the days and my hours and stuff. And it's very family friendly, like the GP hours. Mostly it's kind of like, 9 to 5, essentially. And this was like one evening, Tuesday, maybe once a month, and weekends. So you kind of work around it. There's a lot of flexibility. And that's a good thing about being a GP, especially in the UK. Literally every GP practice around the corner has a shortage. So they're always looking for someone. So, it's not as rigid as being in a hospital where you kind of have to, work with those hours.
Talking about Dubai, so you...
And before coming out here, I never even wanted to visit Dubai as a holiday. For me, this came across in a media at least. Very fake place, bling, But I had a friend of mine who was from Abu Dhabi actually, and he was like, Dubai, UAE in general is very, very different, very family friendly, lots of things going on. Even that lifestyle, if you don't necessarily like it, there's a lot of people, family friendly stuff you can do. So I actually wanted to come to Abu Dhabi, and then I looked into getting to Abu Dhabi. So I was like, okay, my kids are very young. I just got married, very young family. I was like, if I'm going to try this abroad, this is the time to do it. Because once you got a family and a bit older and they start going to school, it's very difficult to kind of move them around. So I looked to get into Abu Dhabi and it was quite difficult to get a license. Whereas Dubai was literally just upload your documents, it's agency, you get your license as a consultant. And then I literally just went online, I typed big hospitals, Dubai. At the time it was around COVID. So I wasn't really interested in these small clinics. I heard that, they could shut down very quickly or whatever. So I just sent my CV, sent my license, and then that's how I got here.
Do you miss being in the football environment then?
I do actually. Luckily, I don't know if it's luckily actually, so I got involved in the UAE cricket team. Again, that was coincidence. One of the patients came in, he was involved, and I really don't like cricket. So I go there, I'm like, this guy, 3 hours, they're playing the game, very slow, But I got involved in that, and I'm kind of sort of getting involved in another football club here in Dubai, like early stages. But you do kind of miss it. I think what I missed about the football is you get to know all the players, the team. You feel like you're part of that team as well.
I mean, you are.
Yeah, you literally are, yeah. You get to know all the players, and like I said, you watch the pitch side. So it's a bit more like team sports, which you kind of miss as well.
Do you feel like there's some lessons that you learned being a GP in that environment that you wouldn't have necessarily learned in the practice environment?
You mean in the sports environment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the sports, it's very different. So they have a very big demand. There's, the coach's expectations, the players' expectations, and it's managing all of that. So everyone so for example, the coaches or managers will really want to push you to make sure the player's fit to play. The player sometimes really wants to play and like, look, you're not ready. You could actually, have another injury. But it's all about communication, I think. As long as you explain things clearly, pros and cons, ultimately it's their decision. So... but I think it does teach you to be a bit more of a team player. Look at the big picture, I think, when you're in a sports setting.
And have you, brought that with you into, the family kind of practice in terms of, it's interesting that you say that there's managing different demands,
Yeah.
Because, you get, obviously, as a football fan, you see, players that get injured and some, say a Marcus Rashford might be like, cool, I'll just go shopping in New York or whatever. But then you'll get someone who, I don't know, like an Odegaard or someone who, wants to come back before they're even, fit to come back and stuff. And, how do you kind of manage these competing interests? And obviously the club, it's an asset to them, right? So
yeah, it's an asset for them, exactly. Especially when it's like a big match, if it's a cup final or something like that. But you just need to say, look, and sometimes you do tell everybody, say, look, you're not 100%. The team really needs you. You might be able to just work, instead of 90 minutes, play half an hour or 30 minutes or be on the bench. But just notice, take it a bit easy, try not to do hard tackles. And as long as you explain things clearly, you give the patient, the athlete, the option. Similar to GP, sometimes there's pros and cons. I can give you this medication, I could refer you, or you might need to do surgery. Nothing's 100%, but as long as you explain things clearly, pros and cons, and you give them your honest view, most of the time they kind of respect your view and go with it. But nothing in life comes without risk, right? Especially if there's big rewards.
Yeah. To be honest, even that point about communication, I think that can translate into anything. As long as you're clear with what you mean, what you say, what the possible outcomes may be if you go in either direction.
Exactly.
It helps with a lot of things. We were just talking about communication earlier as well. So it makes sense.
When I was doing my master's degree, I did 2 football modules, and it was with the Arsenal team, essentially, medical setup. and and I got to know the lead academy doctor there. So then they kind of approached me to go for an academy role. They were like, look, we really want you to, get involved in Arsenal. That's something you'd be interested in. And, that was a big thing because I'm kind of a bit of an Arsenal fan as well. So, I spoke to the wife. She was like, no chance. We're in Dubai now. Kids are happy. Everyone's happy. We just made that move from the UK. So I kind of had to say, look, I'm just trying this Dubai thing. I've just arrived now. But, kind of keep that door open and see how it goes. But, again, door closes, another door opens, and you just got to be, sometimes you got to look at the big picture as well and see what works for the family.
How do you manage that? Because obviously that sounds like a dream job for you, right? You
Dream
love
job.
football.
Even now when I see them running in the pitch in their bag, it's like, that could have been me. But I think, look, it comes, there's risk with football as well. Like even now, you see a lot of these football clubs, they come with new managers every 2 years. Sometimes that's the medical team as well. New manager comes, they want their own new staff. Sometimes the medical staff get blamed if there's too many injuries. So it comes with its challenges as well. A lot of travel, a lot of evening and weekends. But it's good fun. So I think the way you kind of manage that is just try to get involved, whether it's a local football club here or another sports club, or just try something else that kind of fills that void, I think. But there's always opportunities, especially here in Dubai. There's a lot of opportunities to get involved in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And just, be versatile, be prepared, be ready. And I think opportunities comes.
How does being a doctor in Dubai compare to being a doctor in the UK in terms of like NHS versus like a Dubai hospital?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think there's pros and cons for sure. So if we start off with the NHS is very research-based, okay? Whether they're giving you a medicine or whether they're doing a treatment, a lot of it is backed by science, research. The downside for the NHS is a very long wait. So you might need a scan that'll take months, all right? Whereas in Dubai, done in the same day, yeah? That's the pros and cons of the NHS. Here, a lot of things can be done very quickly, but that can sometimes have its problems. So sometimes you get over-investigated. So for example, if you had a headache today, you can see 5 different neurologists in 5 different hospitals on the same day, and the insurance will cover all of them. The problem with that though, the neurologists all of them might want to do an MRI scan on you or a CT scan on you. You don't really need it but again, they're specialists, they can't really miss anything. And also, you got a lot of options here. And people all over the world, and some of them follow the British guidance, American guidance. So that could sometimes be the challenges. Even within the hospital, you might have 3 cardiologists that work very differently. So it's finding the right person for you as well and not being over-investigated, I think. That's the challenge.
What advice would you give to people that are going into doctors and they're given the advice to go and get over-investigated? How would does the average Joe like us just go and combat that?
There's a couple of strategies. So in terms of, you said getting into medicine or actually seeing a doctor?
No. Like if I'm an inpatient,
okay,
I might go with a headache, or I've had a headache for two
yeah. So
days,
who
2
do you
weeks,
see?
whatever.
Where do you go?
Not just that, but I've been here for over 8 years. So I'll go to a doctor. Oh, I've got a cold, or I've got a cough, or when I was a teacher, my voice would go. So I need some help with that. And then suddenly I'm being inspected by 3 different people. I've left with a bag of medicine.
Yeah.
Which medicine should I even take? Do I even need all these medicines? Or are you just giving it to me so that the insurance company gets more money? Like, it's really hard to tell.
It's a big challenge, yeah. I'll tell you a short story. So when I first came here, I don't want to say where I worked. I worked somewhere else other than where I am now at King's. I came in during, I think, COVID. And there was a lot of, coughs and colds. And I had that NHS mentality. I was like, look, you don't need anything. Paracetamol, ibuprofen on your way. And the other doctor next to me, if he just sneezed, she'll give you antibiotics, inhaler, cough syrup, nasal spray. And then even the patient, like, who's this new guy? Like, he's not giving us anything, right?
Yeah.
So then what I started to do, and I was in my room, I started to put all my certificates. You know, you never do that in the UK. People don't just hang their certificates at the back. So I kind of put all my degrees, Cambridge, UK, and now they see it. They're like, okay, he kind of knows what he's talking about. But I also think the patients know this as well. So patients can tell if you're kind of over, like you said, they're giving them too many things. I've only got a runny nose. Why am I coming out with 5 different medications? And that's how you build trust. So sometimes I'll be like, look, I can give you all this stuff that you want, but it's only going to make me richer, or you genuinely don't need it. But however, if X and Y and Z happens, then maybe we can consider a scan or give you a medicine. And I got a lot of patients. They'll just be like, you know what, you're one of the first doctors that's never given me anything. And, you've come across very honest. And then they'll come back and then they'll bring their friends. So it works like that. So for someone like you who doesn't know anything, like you might not even know a doctor, I always say read their profiles online. So a lot of the profile can tell you what their special interest is, maybe where they're trained, what language they speak, and you can kind of gravitate to someone. And then once you know a very good doctor that maybe you see all the time, you can then say to them, look, do you know a good cardiologist or good orthopedic? And we tend to know, even us doctors, we kind of know who's the person to go to for certain things. So that's kind of your starting point. But it could be, you can get lost actually. There's so many options, whether it's different hospitals or different doctors for your problem.
And do you find that like patients, if I can use the word caliber of patients is different, NHS patients versus
very different,
private?
Very different. Well, not even NHS, country specific. So for example, like British or UK, we're all kind of used to seeing a GP first, right? If you've got a problem, you see the GP first, they leave a sort out, they refer you. There's people from maybe the Arab countries, they just got a bit of a cough, they want to see a respiratory doctor straight away. Or they got a headache, they'll go to a neurologist. So there's some cultural difference as well in terms of who they can see. And the good thing here is that the insurance gives you the opportunity. You can literally see any specialty you want. Unlike the UK where you have to see your GP first and then only they can refer you on. So again, there's a bit of difference there, I think.
But then within certain people's insurances, sometimes it has to be referral as well, right?
I don't think so, actually. I think the challenge with the insurance is that does it cover the hospital? Once it covers the hospital, then they usually cover whoever you want to see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how it works.
And then what about, like, let's say the targets, with NHS and, say, private? Well, I guess there's NHS and then there's private, say, for example, in the UK.
Yeah.
But then there's obviously, I guess, healthcare in Dubai, which is essentially private as well. Are there sort of different targets that hospitals have based on the fact that, I guess, for example, King's is run as a business, right? And then I guess you have NHS trusts, which I guess essentially they're supposed to be managed like a business, but do you find that there's a difference in terms of? There
is probably in a macro level. So even in the NHS, these trusts, they have a budget. Some of them go over their budget, some of them under the budget, some of them go under. There's a lot of privatization where they provide maybe an MRI service, etc. So the finances is important in healthcare because, you can blow a lot of money. You could also make a lot of money as well. So that's the challenge. But I think for any organization to work in healthcare, you just got to have a good reputation. You got to be honest, put the patient at your center of your care. And then I think the numbers will come and the care will come. But I think, with the private, there's more like, like I said, there's a more financial incentive to actually grow it because they run out of business, everything shuts down. NHS is sort of backed by the government. Like, it's very difficult to shut down a hospital. It does sometimes happen, but rather than shut it out completely, it tends to be like, let's merge the hospitals together in the UK because essentially it's backed by the taxpayers. And, NHS is very, very important in the UK, and so it should be. So a lot of people kind of trust it, and they're willing to back it as well financially in terms of taxpayers and stuff.
Yeah, I'd say for me, certainly as a man, like I've definitely seen doctors more here than I have in the UK. I know, like, there's a stigma with men that when they don't feel well, they just don't bother seeing a doctor or anything. Do you find that you get a lot of men patients coming to see you?
I think men in general, they're not like women, for sure. I mean, a lot of men, they kind of like. A lot of them actually told me, like, I'm only here because my wife told me to, essentially. I didn't even want to come. Whereas women, they're a bit more health conscious, I think. So they kind of spot things very early on. So I think it's different in genders and stuff. Maybe there's more availability here as well. There's more access. There's more options. So it might be slightly easier for both men and women to kind of access healthcare here, as opposed to NHS where you might be waiting a long time just to get that GP appointment. You kind of think, can't be bothered. Yeah.
You seem to have this deep sense of honesty and transparency.
Yeah.
Like everything, you're speaking very honestly, which is really nice and very openly.
Okay.
Where did this come from? Have you always been like this?
Yeah, I think so. I think you just say it as it is. Hopefully there's benefit by being honest as well. Like you said, when people see that you're very honest and you kind of tell them how it is, they kind of appreciate you more and they kind of respect what you're saying to them and advice you give them as well.
Have you had lots of people in your life that have been really honest and transparent with you then as well?
Yes and no. Obviously, you come across a lot of different people in your life, but I think the more you surround yourself with honest people, the more you kind of gravitate towards them as well. And when people just lie and dishonest, you kind of just gravitate away from them anyway. And I think that's the same with everyone, right? You just kind of come across a lot of people. The more honest or real someone is, the more you kind of, maintain that relationship more with them, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously it must help in your work as well.
Yeah.
Maintaining clients, or not clients, patients.
Patients, yeah. Building that trust, it's not something,
Would you say there's like any, like, I guess, misconceptions that, when someone comes to see you, are there any like common misconceptions that people have when they go to see you?
Misconceptions. I think there's different expectations for sure. So like I said, there's still some patients, they kind of feel that I've seen a doctor, I've got to come out with something. All right. And sometimes that's a challenge. You might say to them, look, this is just a virus. You don't need antibiotics. The only thing that's going to get rid of this is time. bit of fluids. There's a few things you can take if you're unwell. But there's
When
some
you're telling
patients
people, no,
literally-
if you just need to sleep and drink water, they're like, what? I have to do it myself?
I have to do it myself, and I've come all the way here, and I've booked this appointment. You're not giving me anything. So sometimes they just expect that, and that can sometimes be a challenge. But again, if you explain to them like, look, this is a virus, they're like, where's my antibiotic? Like, no, antibiotics work for bacteria. This is a virus. It's not going to work. Okay, why is it? But again, you kind of have to listen to the patients, examine them thoroughly. So to be honest, a lot of my patients, they'll come in. I'll know within the first minute or two what I'm going to do for them. Like, but I can't say it straight away. Oh, this is a virus. Cool. Like, let's listen to your chest. Let's check your oxygen. Let's check your temperature. Open your mouth up wide. And then they kind of feel, actually, you know what? This doctor was very thorough. He kind of examined me properly. So then when you give them the advice, they kind of accept it a bit more. As opposed to, look, man, I've seen this all the time. Just
Yeah, because then they always feel like, wait a minute. Like,
yeah. How do you even know? You didn't even examine me, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you're very thorough and explain things clearly, because of X, Y, and Z, because you don't have green phlegm, because there's no high fever, I think this is a virus and this is how its time courses, etc., then they kind of accept it a bit more and they appreciate it more as well, I think.
Have you had any really challenging people, whether it is in the UK or Dubai, and how do you manage that?
Challenges, yeah, there's been a lot of challenges.
Which are what are the challenges that kind of stick out in your mind that you can share?
Yeah, I'll share it. I don't know if I can share it. So I had this patient essentially. He's from the Philippines. This is very recent actually, and he was diagnosed with HIV. All right. Now his biggest challenge was, you know, what's going to happen to me? Do I stay here? Do I leave? And that was, for me as well, that was a new thing. Because obviously in the UK, how you manage that kind of thing is kind of like, you know, refer them to a specialist, protocols. Here, you kind of have to get into legalities, what's allowed, do they stay, do they go? So that was a big challenge for me as well, just understanding the laws as well. And at the same time, how best I could help the patient. So, yeah, I think different parts of the world have different challenges. You also sometimes have to break bad news, new cancer diagnosis, you know, young family. So there's been a lot of challenges that you come across. But again, it's a privilege when people kind of come to you with trust and expect you to kind of help them and you just try your best for them.
How do you manage breaking bad news?
So there's a bit of a technique for it. It's never easy. So sometimes if I get a really bad news, for example, there's a scan that's not very good, you try to not do it over the phone. So first you kind of say, look, I kind of want you to come. And if you want to bring your spouse with you or someone close to you, it'll be good if you can come. You usually get a suspicion there's something. You try to make sure no one's going to disturb you in the room. It's a very private place. And you kind of explain to them that, look, give me some warning shots, we'll call it. So, look, we found some bad news, or not necessarily bad news, but, you know, news that are not very positive. We suspect X, Y, and Z. You pause a lot as well, let them kind of sink it in, a few silence, and then you kind of follow up with questions they might have. Be very accessible as well, whether that's giving them the practice or the hospital's number, whether it's giving them your card, your email, say, look, you're not going to maybe remember everything I've said, but is there any questions that you thought about after, anything you want to ask me? Here's my email, here's my contact. Happy to respond. So just being very accessible, keeping things very simple, giving them time to kind of take it in is the best way to break bad news, I think.
Do you give them a kind of, I mean, there might not be a solution, but like next steps as to how you're going to support them?
Absolutely. You kind of tell them what the next step is. I mean, you always tell them next step could be just, I'm going to refer you to this person and etc. Or it might be a next scan or another test. You just take it step by step and you kind of share that journey with them. And I think that's another privilege of being a GP is that you stay with them. Even if they see other specialties, they still kind of come back to you and you're kind of overall in charge of their care as well. And that's a big privilege, I think. And luckily though, being in Dubai, most people here are very young professionals, 30s, 40s, young families. So you don't see a lot of like very elderly people, a lot of people dying, as you would say in the NHS in the UK. So that's kind of been the biggest difference actually. So for example, the biggest challenge in the UK before I came out, very difficult to get an appointment to see me. And then when they come, they'll have like 5 or 6 different issues, like a list. Sometimes they're very elderly with like, 8 or 9 different medications. So it's a different challenge for young professionals that come really with one thing. They're like, I've coughing, I've got X, Y, and Z. You can't just deal with it. So in that sense, it's a bit easier being here, I think.
Yeah, that must be quite hard, like being, say, back in the UK and especially if, say, for example, you, like the patient has come to see you and maybe you suspect something bad, but obviously you can't give them the official until I guess they've had results back or what have you, or if you're aware of it, and then they're trying to get an appointment and they can't, obviously there must be like a part of you that's just like, I wish I could just tell them, but
it's the challenge. And some patients are very sick and you're like, they really should see you. They can't get an appointment. So then what do? They go to A&E. And what happens to A&E is a 5-6 hour wait. And then it's a vicious circle. But I think, I think governments all around the world are trying to, address this. The new government in the UK trying to say they're going to put more funding for primary care, GPs. I think if you could deal with most things kind of at source, it just kind of helps everyone. Yeah. It's less costly, it's more accessible for the patients, it's easier for everyone. Whereas if people can't see a doctor, they get these red flags, suspected cancers, they can't see the doctor, then sometimes it could be too late. And if only if it was caught earlier, then maybe the treatment would have been better. Luckily in Dubai, I don't have that challenge. You can pretty much see the doctor in the same day, few days, scans are done very quickly, tests are done very quickly, so things are much quicker here. So that's the kind of advantage I'll say.
As a GP, obviously you're talking about like finding the source. A lot of people are just going for a cure rather than seeing what the source is. Do you help advise people on trying to find what the source of the issue is rather than just putting a Band-Aid on the issue?
So sometimes the issue is a quick fix. So it's a quick antibiotics or a quick tablet. Sometimes we'll be like, okay, why are you having this thing for many months? We need to do some more tests or we need to do some more scans. Sometimes we really just don't know what's going on. And sometimes I think the best cure for that is just give it time. You'll be like, look, we've done so many tests on you. I don't really know what's going on. I could tell you I don't think it's anything serious because of X, Y, and Z. But let's just monitor things. Let's see how you get on. Especially with people that come out with, these GI things like, I'll get a bit of diarrhea or colic pain. You do all the tests, everything's normal. They're like, it really could be anything. Maybe it's something you're eating. Maybe it's a different environment. But then you come up with some practical solutions. You'll be like, look, just keep a diary. When you get these episodes, or sometimes people say they feel dizzy and they have a lot of tests done, everything's normal. Like, look, when it happens again, just try to keep a diary. What did you eat? What were you doing? See if there's a pattern. Sometimes it just goes away by itself, or sometimes actually just by having that pattern, you can kind of figure out more what's going on. So as long as you have a plan, and the plan doesn't mean that you know what's going on. It's like, look, this is what we're going to do. Monitor things, do a test, try this tablet. If it doesn't work, come back. And I think the patient appreciate that honesty as well, coming back to your earlier point. As long as you're honest, you don't have to have all the answers, but you can kind of share your thought process. Then I think the patients trust you a bit more, and then they usually come back and see you.
You mentioned something earlier about some patients wanting, might having a virus and then wanting like antibiotics and stuff.
Yeah.
Just for like, I guess someone listening that is there kind of a simple way of breaking that down why an antibiotic doesn't work with the virus?
Yeah. So I usually say, antibiotics only works for bacteria. Then they're like, how do you know this is not a bacteria? And I'll be like, look, if this was a bacteria, you'll have different signs. So again, after I've examined them, I'll be like, look, you use your bacteria chest, you have a lot of green phlegm. When I listen to their chest, there's a lot of crackles. I'm like, oh, you don't have that. You might sometimes have a very high temperature. Your temperature's good. If it's coming from your throat, tonsillitis, I'll be seeing a lot of yellow pus. Again, when I examined your throat, it looks all clear. So again, when you're kind of telling them why I don't think it is, then they'll accept it. If they initially just come in and say you don't need it, they'll be like, well, how do you know, and why are you not giving me what I want? You can't explain it, and you'd be like, and then you can say, look, if you're taking antibiotics when you don't need it, that could have problems as well. That can cause resistance, which means in the future when you do need it, it doesn't work. So as soon as you explain things clearly and you kind of show them that you have their best interests at heart, then they kind of accept your prognosis or what the next step is. Yeah.
And what's your thoughts on holistic approaches to helping viruses and all of that kind of thing?
Okay, what do you mean by holistic? What do you mean by holistic? Again, it's a very
like homeopathic remedies, let's say, or like Chinese medicine, or like Chinese when I was a kid, if I was sick, my mom said go take vitamin C and what's it called, echinacea.
Yeah.
If I'm getting sick, or if I've got a bruise, take echinacea. No, not echinacea. Arnica.
Echinacea has been used for anything, whatever that is.
Echinacea, you put it helps supposedly. Yeah. I don't know if it's a placebo. I'm here for placebos because they work for me. But like echinacea, you would use that to help fight off a cold and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Arnica, you help for bruising, or like my mum would always tell me take some arnica if you're about to go on an operation and take it after. It helps with healing, supposedly.
Yeah. So I think there's pros and cons. So for example, for those things that you're saying, even like lemon and ginger, those kind of things are good actually. If you've got a common cold, anything that's soothing, we kind of encourage it. Sometimes the problem I have is that you get these people that go to these, Holland and Barrows or these pharmacies, and they just take 20 different multivitamins, omega-3s, minerals. And you're like, why are you taking all that stuff? And then they're like, oh, should I be taking all this? And I always say, look, if you need it, so if we do a test and the only exception is probably vitamin D, but in general, if the test doesn't show you're low in anything, I'm like, just eat the natural food, okay? Balanced diet, eat fish, eat whole vegetables, eat fruits. They have all the minerals and kind of vitamins that you need, as opposed to take a vitamin C tablet. Why not just have an orange? It's got the fiber, it's got the vitamin C plus everything else. So try to keep food very simple. But people want to take all these different multivitamins and then sometimes they eat junk, and I'm like, that's not gonna like balance out what you've been eating. So kind of have the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, look, I usually say with a lot of these things, they probably don't do any harm, but they're probably doing nothing. All right. Sometimes they can have a small benefit, but again, as long as it's with moderation, if it's just 1 or 2 different, multivitamin you're taking, fair enough. But if you start coming out with a big list of omega-3 and fish oil and vitamin B12, and I'm taking magnesium and zinc, and I'm like, why are you taking all of this? They read it somewhere, or someone told me to do it. I just told them, I think you're probably wasting your money here.
So magnesium doesn't help people sleep.
It does.
It does, but you don't have to take it.
So magnesium actually does help people sleep. We don't really know why actually, but a lot of people do take it. But yeah, again, if you're taking it to help you sleep, take it. But if you're just taking it, you don't know why, because it's good for you or something like that. It comes with these very vague terms. You probably don't need to.
Does it help with inflammation or anything?
It helps with recovery. So magnesium, so a lot of the sports athletes or people that go to the gym a lot, weights, I would say if you're getting muscle aches after weightlifting or whatever, take magnesium. It does kind of help. It's an electrolyte. Kind of helps with that recovery a bit faster. But it's like people that take whey protein. A lot of people take whey protein, but they don't do any weights or go to the gym. It's like, why are you doing that? That's not going to all of a sudden make
I was about to say, are you about to tell me I shouldn't drink protein?
I was enjoying good. But yeah, if you go to the gym, do it. Even creatine supplements, it has its benefit, but again, it's for the right person. But people read all this stuff and they see the pictures of bulky people, and they're like, if I drink all of that, I'm going to be like, no, get the basics right. 90% is going to the gym, exercising. Then this little 5 to 10% could be the extra supplements or protein shakes, etc.
Yeah. And that's probably slightly different because one thing I want to do is, and we spoke about this before, is I want to do a tolerance test.
Yeah.
Like to know what foods I should probably avoid more, like for me, for my makeup and stuff,
So I have a mixture in terms of my views on this. So some tolerance tests are good. They kind of tell you this is good, this is bad. Unfortunately, a lot of them are very vague. They'll come out with this, you could be intolerant to milk, or you could be, and you're like, I drink milk every day, I've had no problem with it. So somebody's reporting, if it's very vague, it's not very helpful for you. But some people have a genuine intolerance, like they take something, big rash, got no idea what it is, and it comes back that, you should avoid, gluten, then that has its role. But some people do this like 1 million different tests by a blood test, and it just comes back as random stuff, and you're certain that doesn't cause you any problem. Could be a bit suspicious about how valid that information is.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on vaccines in general?
Big fan of vaccines. It does save lives. I remember during the COVID vaccine, I had a lot of these people that are like, I'm not having the vaccine. I'm like, why? I think it's the CIA spying on us. I'm like, listen, why do you think you're an agent? Why is the CIA or MI5 going to be doing stuff to kind of monitor you? Like, what are you getting up to? So a lot of people have their thoughts and stuff. But in general, the data's there. It does save lives. Obviously, there was some initial concern because it's a new thing, especially the COVID one. It came out very quick. And that's understandable. But in general, all of these vaccines have saved a lot of lives. If you look at MMR vaccines, flu vaccine saves lives every year. So I'm a big fan of them for the right people at the right time, etc.
So I have a lot of friends that have had children in the recent years, and now I'm finding out when a baby arrives, they start getting pumped with vaccines.
They're getting pumped. They're taking them from you, pumping them, they're giving them back. What? It's like that.
Yeah, there's different vaccines. Yeah, when
man.
the baby is born, they get different vaccines, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
is that without the parents' consent?
Not immediately. I think when you're initially born, they do some tests to check the blood. I think the first vaccine is usually around 2 months. That's kind of the first vaccine.
Okay, so the parent has to sign off on it.
Everything is parent. Everything is
okay,
parent-based. But then if the parent's like, I don't want my child to have any vaccine, then you kind of pressure them, like, why? There's evidence, etc. So you try to challenge it, but in the end, it's parental control, parental,
I was about to say, I thought that was a controversy you were just about to unearth.
I don't think you have to, but it's strongly advised, right?
Strongly advised, yeah. Because what vaccines do, they kind of prevent you from getting the disease in the first place. And if you do get the disease, it comes very mild,
Okay. So there's actual evidence that supports, like, it's helped babies live.
Yeah, of course. It's eradicated some diseases like smallpox and stuff. That's just, we don't see it anymore. So it definitely saves lives. It prevents things. The best time to think about vaccines, though, generally is as a child and also when you're traveling. So if you're going to somewhere like Asia or Africa, where there's a lot of infections that are specific to that area, that's when you kind of need to consult the doctor to see, am I up to date with my vaccines? Do I need to get anything further? That's kind of the best time to do it.
Yeah. But some people, I've got some friends that don't believe in, when you're going on holiday, taking those
malaria tablets and vaccines and stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, everything to do with risk, right? If you never had the vaccine, doesn't mean you're going to get this disease and die from it, but it just kind of minimizes your risk of getting these things. There's something called herd immunity as well. So sometimes, so you say you might not get a vaccine, but because we've all had it, it kind of protects you from getting it in the first place, actually, because we've all had it. So you're less likely
Oh, that's sick.
to be exposed, yeah. But that only works if everyone else has it as well, right?
Yeah.
So, but if everyone's like, I'm not having it, that's when you get these outbreaks of these diseases again.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge.
That's actually very interesting because I'm not really I don't know, I think I got it from my mum, like, don't take vaccines.
You say that, but during that, I think the pandemic, you're like, you don't get the vaccine, you're not traveling. And you're like, do I travel on my holiday or do I get the vaccine?
Yeah.
So a lot of people had that dilemma and they just kind of went with it in the end. So, yeah.
That is true.
Like for me, on the COVID thing, like I wasn't like one way committed to not getting it or one way committed to getting it. So for me, it was just like I was like, I'm not gonna get it for now. And then the moment when I needed to travel, I was like, and actually for me, in Dubai in particular, like they basically said that you can't perform without the vaccine.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's the point when I was like, okay,
It's
yeah,
affecting
like,
business
it's affecting
now. It's
business.
affecting
Yeah,
income.
yeah.
What's today?
Yeah.
So,
But you know what? Some concerns are valid. If you're like, oh, I don't know this, it's a new vaccine, it hasn't been tested, and that's fair. It's only been out very quickly in a few months, so you can understand that. But I think when some people come out with these grandiose ideas of being monitored and hidden agendas by governments, it's hard to argue those people because they've got that, they've got that belief. Yeah. And in the end, it's everyone's choice. Again, you might be restricting your travels, whatever, but I always kind of focus on more people that have vulnerable people at home, whether it's very elderly people, cancer patients, sick people, very young children. Just say, look, you're kind of protecting you and your family by getting these vaccines.
Yeah. What about things like people actually taking on board their own health conditions? So I think in the UK, obviously we're from the UK, so it's easier to compare, but there's clear NHS history. Like, I'm sure if I went there, I'd be able to find my history throughout the years of my life being there, going to the doctors. Here, you're bouncing from hospital to hospital. I've been to so many different hospitals here. So my medical records are everywhere. So me coming here young and dumb, of course I didn't keep a record of anything I was doing, which now in hindsight, I would always advise people to do that. But what do you think the best way to keep a record of your own medical kind of history and life journey is?
Challenging. I think the good thing is, so if you're from the UK, for example, or if you've come from the UK to Dubai, your GP still has everything you've had in the UK. So literally, you can contact your GP and say, look, can you just send me my records or send me my vaccination? Especially with vaccine, a lot of people don't remember what they've had. Send me my vaccine. The GP practice where you were last, they'll have access to everything while you're in the UK. So they can just send that to you. And then when you're here, you are right, like most hospitals work in a different computer system. They don't really share records. It is changing a bit, so there's some hospitals kind of working together where you can kind of access. It might not be the full record, but you can kind of see what patients' medications they're taking. But it's not really conjoined, to be fair. Having said that, a lot of patients kind of go to certain hospitals and then everything will be in that record. But then again, you might want to see, I don't know, neurologist here, cardiologist there, and that becomes difficult. Some hospitals, like for example at King's, we do have this portal app where you can access your own blood results and your scans on the app on your phone. So even if you go to different hospitals, you can just open and say, there's my results, this is what I had at King's, and you can show it to them or email it to them.
That's very helpful.
So so a lot more digital things are happening in the healthcare setting, which makes it easier for the patient. But it is a bit more challenging.
I even found as well, like with King's, with my physio, when I wanted to try and get like a second opinion. I called up King's and then they emailed me like my scans and everything and put it on like a disc that I could take to.
Really? That's really good.
For disc. Well, I think we're trying to do automatic emails now for blood results. That has its challenging as well, because sometimes it'd be like one thing's a little bit high and then they call you, why is this high? What does that mean? You kind of tell them, look, like, this is normal, slightly higher than the normal range, but it's normal for you. Don't need to worry about it. But I think, giving the patient as much access to their own records, it could only be a benefit. They can monitor it as well. They can see the changes. They can share it with the other healthcare providers.
And what do you think about tests in the waters with different kind of doctors and medical advice? For me personally, if someone tells me some kind of news, I'm going to like four people before I commit.
Look, there's benefits for that. So for example, if say as the doctor saying you need to have a surgery, a big operation, there's no harm in getting a second opinion. That's actually a good thing, because you want to believe that what you're getting is the right thing as well. It's not unnecessary surgeries or procedures being done. So always get a second opinion if it's a major thing, I think. Whether it's the same hospital or a different hospital, and just seeing how they're matching up. And you can always challenge both of them. It's like, okay, why are you saying this? The other person said that. Okay, what's the pros and cons? Can I wait or do I really need it? And if you go to 3 or 4 different people and they're all saying the same thing, then you probably do need that procedure done. So it kind of, convinces you. But I think if in doubt, just ask. And the good thing about the insurance system here, you can pretty much see as many people as you want. So
And
sometimes
quickly.
it can be difficult, seeing that, making sure you're getting the right advice as well. And that's not easy to overcome by.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very useful. I think you dropped a lot of useful information that I think listeners will, be like, oh, I didn't know that, or actually, I'm gonna ditch the vitamin C and I'll pick up some oranges.
Get the orange,
fish.
Yeah.
I guess before we kind of round it up and stuff, just touching on obviously, your journey to becoming a doctor. What would you say to somebody that's maybe perhaps let's say take South London or inner city at the moment studying and has these aspirations of becoming a doctor? What's the one gem that you would give to them in terms of them being able to succeed in that?
It's challenging because if you got to think about it, you got to make a decision when you're 16, 17, what route you're going to go down. It's very difficult, especially for guys, young men and stuff. That age is very distracted, you're not really focused. I think whatever you want to do, whether it's being a doctor, lawyer, pilot, try to find someone, either a mentor or someone you can actually follow. The only problem with that is that you might find someone who's had a very bad experience, or you might follow a doctor that hates his job, doesn't like it, talks down of it. Again, take that with a pinch of salt, but as many people that you can see. And a good starting point as a doctor, most kind of people know their GP. You can be like, look, how is it being a doctor? Can I maybe shadow you for a day, see what you're getting up to? Or do you have friends that I could maybe see in a hospital? Or I'm interested in sort of specialties. So kind of get some sort of exposure just to understand what it is. Obviously, not the full picture of what it involves. Speaking to students as well, medical students, you might know someone who's a few years above you, telling you how it is. And just, sometimes you just kind of go with your instincts. What I would say, the good thing about being a doctor, there's so many different specialties out there. So you're more likely to find something you like. You can get into mental health, being with children only, women's health, surgery, medicine, GP. There's so many different specialties that are very different. Being an eye doctor, whatever it is, you're more likely to find something that's kind of, ticks your boxes. So that's great profession. Go for it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Throughout your whole life journey, it sounds you've used the word challenges quite a lot.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you have a really good mindset when it comes to challenges. So what advice would you give people when they're coming head to head with any challenge? What kind of mindset should they have towards it?
So I think with the challenges, there's challenges, there's opportunities. Sometimes just kind of zooming out, looking at the big picture, all right? And that's in any sort of environment. That could be a work environment, school environment, whatever. Sometimes you can find things you're like, this is so unjust, or politics, or why is this happening to me? But sometimes just zooming out and seeing, what's the big picture? What's happening here? Does it really matter? Is it a big deal? How can I overcome it? Kind of just helps you overcome it, I think. Because it's very easy to just get bogged down in small little details that don't really mean much in the big picture or the grand scheme of things. So just zooming out and just looking at the big picture kind of helps, I think. So
do you find that you're better along these years of practice at choosing your battles wisely?
Yeah, choose your battle wisely. Sometimes knowing you can only control what you can control. There's a lot of things that are out of your control. That's in any sort of big organization as well. There's a lot of injustice on politics, but as long as you can kind of control what you can, know that as well, and then just let the rest happen. Let it be what it's going to be. But you got to understand you're limited in what you can control in your life, not just work, personal life, whatever. And just understand that. And there's some things that are out of your control. So long as you understand that, I think, and then you just kind of go with the flow and try to be honest, try to be good, and things should work out.
Yeah,
amazing.
I love that because what's the point of stressing on something you can't change or control?
True.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, that's good. We have a closing tradition on the podcast as well.
Okay.
And we ask every guest the same question. And the question is, if you could have one rule that everyone in the world had to implement, what would it be and why?
I think be humble. I think that's quite important. Sometimes, depending on where you are, your social setup, you see people all different mindset. Just kind of recognizing that small person or that person that's not doing a big role, but you come across, just be humble, say hello, appreciate not a lot of people have opportunities. I think it'll make you feel better as well, actually, rather than just, thinking, I've got more than this person. Just, especially in Dubai, you see a lot of people that don't have much as well. A lot of people, a lot of extravagance. But as long as you're humble, you treat everyone with kind of respect and dignity, I think, that's a very important skill, I think, to have.
That's a beautiful one. No one said that yet.
No one said that yet. Yeah, I like that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. It's been
Thank you for
really
having me.
insightful.
Yeah, no, it's been really insightful, man. No, I'm glad we finally got it on. And it's mad because we were texting initially to make it happen, and then it kind of we stopped texting. But in my mind, I was like, I need to text Dr. Ali and get him back on. And then where we bumped into each other.
Bumped in the mall.
In the mall.
Literally in the mall.
Yeah,
that was
Dubai
last
Hills
week
Mall,
or something.
No way.
I'll come down the escalator and then you're walking And I was like, yeah, like,
Let's make it happen.
Love that.
Only in Dubai, right? Things happen quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They really, really do.
But thanks for having me, guys. I really enjoyed your podcast, and I wish you all a great success. And it's great the setup you guys have here.
Amazing.
Thank
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Thank you.